Picture yourself floating deep underwater. It's quiet and dark. Far above you can see faint, shimmering shafts of sunlight penetrating the surface. But down here in the depths, the world is mysterious, vast, and mostly unknown. Suddenly, something emerges from the darkness below you, a shape, a form, a living thing you hadn't seen before. It was always there, in the depths, but now it has risen into the light where you can see it. This is what happens every time an insight rises into your conscious awareness. Every creative breakthrough, every aha moment. Every time you suddenly understand something that was puzzling you just moments before. Welcome back to Inner Vision Architecture. Today we are exploring one of the most fascinating and mysterious aspects of consciousness: transmission. This is the third stage of our architecture, and it is the bridge between your unconscious and conscious worlds. It is the process by which unconscious information becomes conscious awareness. The optic nerve of the third eye. Dr. Mark Beeman's research at Northwestern University has revolutionized our understanding of how insights actually happen in the brain. Using EEG and fMRI technology, his team can predict when someone is about to have an insight up to 8 seconds before the person is consciously aware of it. What they found is that just before the aha moment, there is a burst of high-frequency brainwave activity, called gamma waves, in the brain's right anterior temporal lobe. This area is crucial for making connections between distantly related ideas. But even before that, there is a brief quieting of visual processing areas. It's as if the brain has to look away from the external world to see the solution that has been forming in the unconscious. The unconscious mind is processing, connecting, and solving problems continuously. But most of this activity never reaches the surface of conscious awareness. Transmission is the bridge that carries these solutions, these insights, into the light. Think of your unconscious mind as a vast, subterranean research library. It is constantly cataloging information from your senses, making novel connections between ideas, running complex emotional simulations, and testing hypotheses about the world. But the librarian, your conscious, analytical mind often only gets the final report when the deep research is complete. Sometimes that report is ignored completely. Dr. Antonio Damasio's work on somatic markers provides a powerful window into one of the primary mechanisms of transmission. His research shows that your body is constantly generating subtle signals, he calls them somatic marker sane response to complex situations. These are micro-reactions, often felt as a gut feeling or a subtle shift in your physical state, that contain vast amounts of processed information about the potential outcomes of a choice. But most of us have been trained to ignore these signals. We dismiss gut feelings. We override our intuitive sense because we can't explain it rationally. We tell ourselves not to be so sensitive. This is like owning a highly sophisticated early warning system, but never checking the radar. The third stage of our inner vision architecture, transmission, is about developing your capacity to receive, honor, and interpret these deeper communications from your own system. It's about increasing your internal bandwidth. Let me tell you about Jennifer, a brilliant CEO who came to our program because she felt a growing disconnect in her work. She kept making decisions that looked perfect on paper, that were backed by all the data and analytics, but that felt profoundly wrong in practice. She was a master of logic, but she had learned early in her career to dismiss anything that couldn't be quantified or explained in a spreadsheet. Through transmission practices, Jennifer began to notice that her body was a source of profound intelligence that her analytical mind couldn't access directly. Before important meetings, she started noticing a subtle tightness in her chest when certain strategies were being discussed, even if they seemed logically sound. During negotiations, she could feel a slight sense of expansion in her heart area when someone was being authentic, and a distinct, almost metallic contraction when they were not. This wasn't magical thinking. Dr. Beatrice de Gelder's research on affective blindsight shows that our brains are constantly reading micro-expressions, vocal tones, and body language, processing thousands of data points per second, and generating intuitive impressions much faster than our conscious minds can keep up. Jennifer learned to build a pause into her decision-making process. Before finalizing a major choice, she would step away from the spreadsheets and check in with what her system was sensing. She started asking questions like, "What does my body know about this that my mind doesn't?" Or, setting logic aside for a moment, "What is the felt sense of this path?" The results were remarkable. Her decision-making became not only more accurate but more aligned. Her relationships with her team deepened, and she reported feeling, for the first time, a sense of wholeness in her leadership. So how do you develop this capacity for transmission? How do you build a stronger bridge to your own unconscious intelligence? A key factor is creating the right conditions. Insight rarely arrives when we are stressed, rushed, or narrowly focused. Research shows that insight is often preceded by a state of relaxed, open attention. This is why our best ideas often come in the shower, on a walk in nature, or just as we are drifting off to sleep. In these moments, our analytical gatekeeper mind relaxes, allowing the quieter signals from the unconscious to be transmitted. One of the most powerful practices we teach for improving transmission is called somatic tracking. This involves learning to sense and follow the subtle, shifting landscape of sensation in your body. It goes beyond the basic detection we learned in the last episode. Here, you are not just noticing sensation, you are listening to it as a language. Throughout your day, you can pause and ask, "What is my body sensing right now?" Notice the quality of your breathing. Is it shallow or deep, rushed or relaxed? Feel the sensations in your chest. Is it open or contracted, warm or cool? Check the state of your belly. Is it tight or soft, agitated or calm? Notice the posture of your shoulders, the tension in your jaw, the temperature of your hands. These aren't random sensations. They are information. They are the voice of your nervous system. Dr. Stephen Porges's groundbreaking polyvagal theory shows that our autonomic nervous system is like a sophisticated surveillance system, constantly monitoring our internal and external environment for cues of safety and threat. It has three main states: a grounded, safe, and social state, a mobilized, fight or flight state, and a collapsed, shutdown state. This system doesn't communicate in words. It communicates through the language of sensation. By learning to track these somatic signals, you gain real-time access to your nervous system's assessment of reality. The second practice is what we call intuitive inquiry. This involves learning to ask powerful questions and then creating the space for answers to emerge, rather than immediately jumping to analytical problem-solving. When you are facing a difficult decision, trying to understand a complex situation, or seeking creative inspiration. Instead of immediately thinking your way to a solution, try this. First, clearly formulate your question. Write it down or state it out loud. Make it as simple and direct as possible. For example, what is the most important thing for me to focus on right now? Or what is the root of this conflict? Then, and this is the crucial part, let the question go. Release your mind from the need to solve it. Sit quietly for a few minutes, go for a walk, or engage in a simple, repetitive task, like washing dishes. Simply listen. Notice what arises in the space you've created. It might be an image, a memory, a string of words, a song, a sudden feeling, or simply a quiet sense of knowing. The key is to resist the urge to immediately analyze or judge what comes up. Just receive it. This practice is a modern application of what the psychologist Carl Jung called active imagination, a way of engaging with the unconscious mind that honors its different language, a language of symbols, feelings, and images. It's about trusting that your deeper mind is always working on your behalf, and your job is to create the quiet space necessary for the transmission to be received. But it's crucial to understand this. Transmission isn't about replacing analytical thinking with intuition. It's about integrating multiple sources of intelligence. Your rational mind is an extraordinary tool, brilliant at analysis, logic, and sequential processing. Your unconscious, intuitive mind is also an extraordinary tool, brilliant at synthesis, pattern recognition, and processing vast amounts of information simultaneously. The most effective, wise, and creative individuals learn to use both systems in concert. Consider how a master chess player operates. Garry Kasparov described his process as first getting an intuitive feel for the board, a holistic sense of the game's direction. Only after that intuitive hit would he engage his analytical mind to calculate the specific moves to support that strategy. He was using transmission, the intuitive sensato guide, the powerful tool of his intellect. But what happens when these signals are blocked? What obstructs the bridge of transmission? The primary obstacle is a dysregulated nervous system. When we are stuck in a chronic state of stress, fight or flight, or shutdown, our system prioritizes survival above all else. The bridge to our deeper, more nuanced intelligence is effectively closed. There is no bandwidth for subtlety, creativity, or deep insight when the body believes it is under immediate threat. This is why practices that regulate the nervous system, like conscious breathing, time in nature, physical movement, and genuine social connection are not luxuries. They are essential for clear thinking and deep insight. They are what keep the channels of transmission open. Another obstacle is a rigid attachment to being purely rational. If our internal filter says, "If I can't explain it logically, it isn't valid," then we will systematically dismiss the most valuable transmissions from our unconscious. Cultivating an attitude of not knowing, of being open to mystery, is a prerequisite for receiving deeper wisdom. As these signals begin to arrive, as the bridge of transmission strengthens, we move into the next phase of our architecture. The signal has been detected, it has passed through our filters, and it has now been transmitted into conscious awareness. What happens next? How do we make sense of it? This brings us to the fourth stage, recognition. This is the moment when the blurry image that has emerged from the depths sharpens into focus. It is the moment we name the pattern. In our next episode, We will explore the art and science of recognition. We'll learn how to build an internal vocabulary for the landscape of our minds, how to distinguish between a helpful insight and a defensive reaction, and why the simple act of naming a pattern can be the most powerful step toward changing it. But until then, I invite you to practice listening. Listen not just with your ears, but with your whole body. Ask yourself a question that matters to you, and then create a small pocket of silence to listen for the answer. What is your deeper intelligence trying to tell you? What messages are waiting to be transmitted from the quiet depths of your own being?